So, picture this. It is 3 a.m. You have this massive deadline looming in just like a few hours.
Oh, the worst.
Right. And you are staring at your sleek, expensive Wi-Fi router. And it is just mocking you with the single blinking amber light.
Yep, we have all been there.
So you do the only thing you know how to do. You unplug it, you count to 10, you plug it back in, and you just pray to whatever unseen forces govern the bandwidth.
I mean, it is the most universally agonizing modern scenario. Like, we navigate our entire lives believing technology is binary. It is either working or it is broken.
Yeah, exactly.
But in that specific moment, when that amber light blinks, you are plunged into a state of just total helplessness. You are suddenly disconnected from the collective nervous system of the planet.
Okay, let's unpack this, because today we are not looking at a tech manual or, troubleshooting tips.
Thank goodness.
Right. We are doing a deep dive into this brilliant, deeply uncomfortable, and honestly hilarious satirical manuscript called Great Philosophers on why the Wi-Fi is down.
It is such a good read.
It really is. We are going to take the heavyweight frameworks of history's greatest thinkers, from Socrates to Camus, and apply them to the mundane, hair-pulling frustration of an internet outage.
Yeah, we are treating this deep dive as a survival guide for the modern soul, basically. We're tracing the actual emotional arc of a Wi-Fi blackout.
So what's fascinating here is how the manuscript frames this entirely modern problem, like right from the start.
Oh yeah, the foreword. It's written by this fictional guy, Dr. Martin Helpdesk.
Which is a great name.
Right. He's supposed to be a tech support veteran with a literal PhD in human suffering. And he argues that the spinning wheel of death isn't a new phenomenon at all.
No, not at all.
It is simply the ancient universal experience of expecting something from a different universe and, while receiving absolute silence in return.
So the moment the Wi-Fi drops, we aren't just losing Netflix. We are being thrown into a full-blown philosophical crisis. We actually start questioning our reality.
You really do. You look at that blinking light and wonder if the connection was ever truly there to begin with.
Exactly. And the book imagines Socrates wandering through the Athenian agora, except now he's cornering this guy named Glaucon, who is frantically waving his phone around trying to get a signal.
Right. So Socrates applies his famous method of interrogation to this poor, desperate user. Glaucon insists his Wi-Fi is down, and Socrates just starts probing that assumption.
As he does.
Yeah. He points out that the Wi-Fi is invisible, it's intangible, and it lacks a physical body. It is just radio waves transmitting packets of data.
Yeah, which is wild when you think about it.
So Socrates forces Glaucon to explain how he can be so certain this invisible ether was ever truly, up in the first place.
And Glaucon's motivation is just the best part. He literally just wants to send a text message to his friend to complain that his internet is broken.
Which is so human.
It is. But Socrates points out the complete logical fallacy here. I mean, if the friend's Wi-Fi is also down, the message won't deliver. And if the friend's Wi-Fi is working, informing him of the outage does absolutely nothing to fix Glaucon's router. So Glaucon is forced to admit he doesn't actually want a solution.
No, he just wants a witness to his suffering.
Yes.
And if we connect this to the bigger picture, Socrates is basically dismantling the entire concept of our digital existence. He forces Glaucon to realize that we don't actually exist online.
Wait, what do you mean we don't exist?
Well, we are meticulously curating fictional avatars of ourselves, right? We're performing for an audience of other people who are also just maintaining their own fictional avatars.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So the Socratic conclusion is that an internet outage isn't a loss of reality. It's actually a temporary suspension of a mass hallucination that we are all completely addicted to.
Which perfectly explains why we just sit around staring at the TV when the show stops loading. Like, the manuscript updates Plato's allegory of the cave for the modern apartment.
This is one of my favorite parts.
Right. You have a group of friends sitting on a couch, bathed in the glow of a flat screen, completely transfixed by a spinning buffering wheel.
And they believe they are participating in entertainment.
But they are really just watching the promise of entertainment.
Exactly. In Plato's original allegory, people are chained in a cave watching shadows on a wall, believing the shadows are reality.
Right.
So in this updated version, the true philosopher is the one who finally breaks the trance. He realizes the buffering wheel is a lie. So he stands up, leaves the apartment, and walks 3 blocks to a coffee shop to find real, working, fiber optic internet.
He ascends from the cave of packet loss into the sunlight of actual connectivity.
Yes, exactly.
But the kicker is what happens when he comes back. He returns to the apartment with the truth, and he tells his friends the router is dead and they need to leave the building.
And how do they react?
They reject him. They literally throw a couch cushion at his head. Because accepting the truth means they have to put on pants, walk out into the cold, and interact with the physical world. They would rather sit in silence and watch a spinning circle together than face the reality of their broken network.
It perfectly illustrates our psychological inertia, We prefer a comforting shared illusion over a demanding truth.
Yeah, that makes so much sense.
But this shared experience of the cave eventually splinters. Like when you are alone at 3 a.m. with their blinking amber light, the group delusion fades into just solitary paranoia.
You stop trusting the screen entirely. Which brings us into the realm of René Descartes and his method of radical doubt.
Right. Descartes sits by the fire, looks at his laptop saying no internet, and decides he can't trust the device. He can't even trust his own eyes, because maybe he's dreaming about the outage.
He just strips away every assumption until he hits rock bottom.
And he finds only one absolute certainty, his own anxiety. I ping, therefore I am.
I love that. I ping, therefore I am.
He cannot prove the global network exists, but he can definitively prove his own desperate psychological need to refresh his inbox exists.
Right, which leads to Descartes' famous evil demon hypothesis.
Yes. He imagined this malevolent, omnipotent entity whose sole purpose was to deceive his senses. And the manuscript points out that in the 21st century, this evil demon is simply your internet service provider.
Oh, 100%.
It throttles your bandwidth, it gives you a strong signal icon when absolutely nothing is loading, and it deceives you into believing you have unlimited data.
Wait, I have to jump in here and just look at what we're actually building.
Okay, yeah.
Because if Plato suggests there is this perfect, unattainable form of a router out there in the universe, and Descartes believes the ISP is this omnipotent, deceptive demon in the sky, aren't we basically just treating the internet as a theology?
Oh, absolutely.
Like we are literally praying to a plastic box on a shelf, we offer it our patience and beg it for miracle.
It is entirely a theology. Think about the mechanics of it. The ISP is this invisible entity that governs your daily life. You pay it a tithe every month.
A very expensive tithe.
Right. And when it withdraws its blessing, your life grinds to a halt. And when you realize praying to the plastic box isn't working, your brain immediately pivots to trying to regain control.
You abandon prayer and attempt to apply logic.
Exactly. You start troubleshooting.
You try to figure out why the box is angry, and the text brings in Aristotle for this, specifically his framework of the four causes.
Because human nature demands that we categorize chaos to make sense of it.
Right. So Aristotle would argue that to fix the network, you have to logically deduce the cause of its failure by examining four distinct categories.
Walk us through them.
Okay, first, the material cause, the physical substance. Like, did a squirrel chew through the coaxial cable outside?
Which happens.
Second, the formal cause, the architecture of the thing. Is there a corrupted TCP/IP protocol or maybe a DNS error?
Okay, getting technical.
Third, the efficient cause, the agent that forced the change. This is usually your ISP deciding to run unannounced maintenance at, like, 2 in the afternoon. And finally, the final cause, the ultimate purpose of the network, which is human connection.
I mean, that is a beautiful logical system for understanding the universe.
Yeah.
But in practice, at 3 a.m., how do you actually figure out which of those four causes is the problem?
You can't. You don't know what a DNS error is.
No one does.
So you just abandon Aristotle's logic, you grab the power cord, and you yank it out of the wall.
Which introduces the ethical dimension of troubleshooting, guided by Immanuel Kant.
Oh, Kant is so rigid.
He is. The manuscript applies Kant's categorical imperative to the infamous 10-second rule. Kant's entire philosophy basically rests on the idea that moral actions cannot be driven by personal desire or impulse.
So for Kant, if you restart that router just because you personally want to finish watching a movie, your action has zero moral worth.
Right, you're acting selfishly.
To act ethically, you must restart the router out of a profound moral duty to the concept of troubleshooting itself. You literally have to formulate a universal law. Something like, whenever the Wi-Fi drops, all rational beings must unplug the router, wait exactly 10 seconds, and plug it back in.
The rigidity of that 10 seconds is vital. Like, you are discharging the residual electrical current in the capacitors of the device, sure, but you are also anchoring yourself in rationality.
You can't wait 7 seconds. You can't wait 12. I mean, if everyone just waits however long they feel like waiting, society collapses into relativism.
Yeah, man, Ricky.
It has to be exactly 10 seconds. 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi. It is an a priori synthetic truth. You stand there counting in the dark not to get your email back, but because it is the morally right thing to do as a rational creature.
And doing this creates a perfect illusion of control. You perform the moral ritual, so you expect a reward. But David Hume enters the narrative here to completely dismantle the logic of that ritual.
Oh, Hume.
Yeah, Hume is the ultimate skeptic of causality. If you ask Hume if the 10-second reset will fix the internet, he will just look at you and say, I have absolutely no idea.
Here's where it gets really interesting, because Hume's whole deal is the problem of induction.
Exactly.
Just because turning it off and on again worked 3 times last year doesn't mean the universe is obligated to make it work tonight.
We just assume causality where none exists.
Mm-hmm.
We never actually observe the act of the router fixing itself.
Right, we only observe 2 separate events.
Yes, we unplug the box, and shortly after, the internet sometimes works. Hume argues that our brains are just forming a habit. It is psychological conditioning, much like a rat in a Skinner box pressing a lever for food.
So Hume is basically saying tech support is built on intermittent reinforcement. We do the ritual of counting to 10, and if the light turns green, we think our little counting game caused it.
We give ourselves all the credit.
But honestly, isn't Hume kind of right? Half the time, the ISP just happened to resolve the outage on their end at the exact moment we plugged it back in, and we just take the credit.
He is totally right. We construct an unfalsifiable belief system around our own actions. If the router comes back online, our ritual succeeded.
And if it stays offline?
We just assume the outage is beyond our pay grade. Hume famously claimed that reason is just a slave to the passions.
Wow.
We aren't troubleshooting because it is a logical process. We are troubleshooting because we have a desperate, agonizing desire to escape the pain of disconnection.
And when you plug it back in, and that light stays amber, I mean, the rituals are dead? Logic has failed.
That's when the pain really sets in.
The emotional arc just plummets into a full existential breakdown.
And the manuscript uses Martin Heidegger to explain this psychological freefall. Heidegger developed this concept in phenomenology regarding how we interact with tools.
Right, dividing things into being ready to hand and present at hand.
Exactly. When a tool works perfectly, it is ready to hand. It is essentially invisible. Like when you are typing a seamless email, you don't notice the router, you don't notice the keyboard, you only notice your thoughts.
The equipment just kind of withdraws from your conscious attention.
But the second it breaks,
The second it breaks, it becomes present at hand. Suddenly, you are staring at a cheap plastic box with blinking lights. You are hyper-aware of its physical existence.
and this triggers what Heidegger calls thrownness.
Thrownness.
Yes, in that moment of disconnection, you realize you have been thrown into a world completely dependent on an incredibly fragile subterranean web of cables and servers that you do not understand and cannot control.
You realize you are entirely at the mercy of infrastructure. That spinning wheel of death isn't just an annoyance anymore. It is a stark reminder of your own vulnerability.
Your finitude, basically.
Right. You are not an autonomous person. You are just an endpoint on a grid.
And this realization pushes us straight into the philosophy of Søren Kierkegaard.
Oh, this gets intense.
Very. Kierkegaard outlined different stages of human existence. You've exhausted the ethical stage, you did the Kantian 10-second reset, you checked the physical cables, you even called the automated tech support line.
And the robot voice tells you those terrifying words. We are aware of an outage in your area. Service will be restored in 24 to 48 hours.
That is the ultimate void. 24 to 48 hours is a literal eternity.
It really is.
So you have reached the limits of human reason. There is nothing left to troubleshoot. Kierkegaard would say you are now entering the religious stage of existence.
Meaning you must make a leap of faith.
Exactly. You have to close the laptop, sit in the darkness of your room, and submit to the terrifying freedom of having no internet. You have to trust that the grace of the ISP will eventually return the signal despite your total lack of agency.
Okay, but honestly, I don't want the terrifying freedom of the void.
No.
No. When the robot voice tells me it's going to be 48 hours, my instinct isn't to take a leap of faith. My instinct is to demand a refund. I want to tweet at the company and yell at someone.
And that reaction is exactly why the text brings in Friedrich Nietzsche.
Oh, boy.
Nietzsche would look at your desire to complain to customer service, and he would diagnose it as pathetic slave morality.
Wait, really? So complaining makes me a slave?
According to Nietzsche's framework, yeah. The individual operating under slave morality experiences the outage and immediately cries out, "This is unjust. I pay my monthly bill, Somebody come rescue me.
Ouch.
They demand that a higher power restore their comfort. The master, on the other hand, views the outage as an obstacle to be conquered. They transcend the need for the wifey entirely.
They refuse to be diminished by a blinking light.
Right. Nietzsche goes on this massive rant in the text against the concept of the last man.
The last man being his vision of the ultimate degraded modern human.
Yes,
Right.
a creature who only seeks warmth, comfort, and entertainment. The last man just wants their Spotify playlists and streaming services to work smoothly without any friction.
They avoid struggle at all costs.
And when the network drops, they just blink in confusion, entirely hollowed out because they have no internal life to fall back on.
So, if we review the journey so far, Socrates made us question our reality, Kant and Hume proved our troubleshooting is just a desperate, illogical ritual, Heidegger made us realize we are prisoners of infrastructure, and Nietzsche just called us pathetic for wanting to watch Netflix.
It's been a rough night.
Yeah, and I still have a deadline at 3 a.m. How do any of these philosophers suggest we actually find peace with the spinning wheel of death?
Well, to find actual liberation, the text offers three distinct philosophical off-ramps. The first is Baruch Spinoza and his concept of cosmic determinism.
Okay.
Spinoza views the entire universe as a single, infinitely complex chain of cause and effect.
He literally traces the outage all the way back to the beginning of time.
He does. Exactly 13.8 billion years ago, the Big Bang set every particle in the universe into motion. That specific cosmic trajectory led to the formation of the Earth, the evolution of humanity, the Industrial Revolution.
The invention of fiber optics.
Right, the founding of your specific ISP, and finally, a slightly underpaid technician in your neighborhood who failed to secure a connection properly yesterday afternoon.
So it was all meant to be.
Therefore, your router failing at this exact second was geometrically predetermined at the dawn of time.
Okay, I hear Spinoza saying it was determined 13.8 billion years ago, but frankly, when my Zoom call drops and I'm frozen on screen with my mouth open, telling me about the Big Bang does not lower my blood pressure.
Fair enough.
How does this cosmic history lesson actually help me cope?
Well, Spinoza argues that getting angry at your router is as irrational as getting angry at a rainstorm. It is simply nature unfolding.
Okay.
He suggests we should strive for the intellectual love of God, which for him means understanding and accepting the intricate necessity of the universe.
Huh.
You accept the packet loss with the exact same calm equanimity that you accept the sun rising in the east. It is out of your hands.
That sounds incredibly peaceful, but maybe a bit too passive for me.
You want something more active.
Yeah, and if you want a more aggressive form of liberation, the text hands the microphone to Diogenes the Cynic. And we have to really picture this scene.
This is great.
Diogenes famously lived in a barrel in ancient Greece, rejecting all societal norms. So the manuscript places him in a dumpster behind a modern Starbucks.
Diogenes owns no devices. He possesses nothing.
Right. And a modern remote worker walks up to the dumpster, gripping a smartphone, completely panicking because their two-factor authentication won't load, and they're locked out of their company's server.
And worker says, "My wifey keeps dropping. I need it to survive."
And Diogenes just looks at him and explains that his job, his bank account, and his Slack channels are all elaborate, invisible traps.
Just completely dismissing everything.
Yeah. The text describes a neighbor asking Diogenes to come into their apartment to look at a malfunctioning router. Diogenes walks in, looks at the little plastic box with its blinking lights, declares it a tyrant that has enslaved the household, and simply throws it out the window.
Problem permanently solved.
Literally. His lesson is that there's nothing wrong with the wifey. The wifey is doing exactly what physical objects do at breaks.
So what's the real problem?
The actual problem is your life. The problem is your spiritual greed for infinite bandwidth and your absolute refusal to exist quietly in a room.
Wow. Diogenes basically strips away the illusion that connectivity is a human right or a biological necessity.
He really does.
But recognizing that most of us are not prepared to hurl our expensive electronics into the street and move into a dumpster, the manuscript offers one final philosopher for the modern worker.
Albert Camus and his philosophy of the absurd.
Yes. Camus gives us the myth of Sisyphus, but the boulder is the router.
Camus argues that the human condition is fundamentally absurd. The absurdity is born from the confrontation between our desperate human demand for meaning and order and the unreasonable, deafening silence of the universe.
Or, in this scenario, our desperate demand for connectivity confronting the unreasonable silence of the ISP.
Exactly. The universe simply does not care about your 3 a.m. deadline.
But Camus says we shouldn't despair. And we shouldn't lean on false hope. We can revolt.
We walk over to the router, we press the reset button, we do it knowing full well that the internet will inevitably break again someday.
We do not hope for a flawless connection, and we do not despair over the amber light.
The struggle itself, just the act of pushing the button and continuing to live, is enough to fill a person's heart.
One must imagine Sisyphus pressing the reset button, and one must imagine him happy.
So what does this all mean? The manuscript synthesizes Camus' ideas into this brilliant final concept, the invincible summer.
Tell us about that.
The author tells a story about a time his home network went down for months, forcing him to rely on incredibly slow, limited mobile data. At first, it feels like suffocating.
I can imagine.
But slowly, the endless scrolling stops. The relentless digital noise goes quiet. He realizes he can survive on a fraction of the connectivity he thought was essential. He survives the outage.
And that knowledge, the realization that you can exist without being constantly plugged into the matrix, brings ultimate freedom. You're no longer a hostage to the blinking light.
If we pull all these threads together, this satirical text actually provides us with a profound new vocabulary for understanding modern frustration.
It really does. The next time the network drops, you aren't just facing a minor inconvenience. You are experiencing Heidegger's thrownness into a fragile world.
You are executing a Kantian moral imperative when you count to 10.
And you are standing face to face with the Camusian absurdity of an indifferent universe.
It proves that the mechanics of human suffering haven't changed, only the scenery has. Whether you are chained in Plato's cave, watching shadows dance on a stone wall, or you are sitting on a modern sectional sofa staring at a buffering wheel on a smart TV, the psychological ache is exactly the same.
You are not alone in your buffering.
You're really not.
This raises an important question, though, and it's one that lingers long after the connection is finally restored.
What's that?
If we accept Hume's premise that tech support is essentially a modern religion based on habit, and the router has become our household altar,
Yeah.
what does it actually say about humanity's trajectory?
Oh, that's interesting.
For millennia, our ancestors looked up and projected their anxieties onto the majestic, terrifying, infinite mystery of the cosmos.
And now?
Now, we have taken all of that existential dread and localized it onto a 6-inch piece of plastic that refuses to turn green.
Wow. We traded the infinite unknowable sky for a blinking amber light. There's a heavy, heavy thought.
It is.
I want you to sit with that the next time you are forced to stare at a blank wall because the network dropped. Because eventually the wheel will spin again, it will be 3 a.m., the deadline will be looming, and it will be just you, the router, and the void.